happens is, whether I'm on a subway system or a bus or an airplane or I'm walking somewhere or I'm biking somewhere, I have my earbuds in and I'm listening to a podcast. And that podcast that I'm listening to, if I need information, inspiration, is really giving me an opportunity to expand my thought space. So these are the podcasts that have inspired me. These two guys, Tim and Sid, they work for Sportsnet, which is Rogers, the Canadian sports network. And they have such amazing access to all the Canadian sports, from Blue Jays, Maple Leafs, Raptors, to the entire NHL. They're super authentic. They're not polished, so to speak. What they are is they're interesting. They're tapped into youth culture, popular culture, millennial culture, and make this edutainment style show where it's fun, educational, and really entertaining. Tim and Sid, they post it as a podcast. It's a really good show if you're into sports and you're into like a funny lightheartedness. Tim and Sid show. So Dan Carlin's really good if you're into politics, if you want to know what's going on. And what he does is he gives it a really awesome spin. Common Sense with Dan Carlin. Dan actually has a different show, which is even more popular, called Hardcore History, where he takes a stab at history in ways that nobody else ever has. It's educated, but at the same time, it's entertaining. Talks about things that really come from a place of understanding it. And the cool thing about what Dan Carlin does on Common Sense and on Hardcore History is he's done the research, and then he sits down, and none of it's scripted, and then he just goes and goes and goes and just gives it. It has a kind of spin that brings contemporary politics and current events into the whole scope of history. So where it would fall in history, how it would compare to World War I, to World War II, even beyond. He does such a good job, and he's really articulate and passionate, and an amazing teacher. Dan Carlin, Common Sense. If you really want to try, also check out Hardcore History with Dan Carlin. So the next podcast that I'm gonna share with you guys is the current king of podcasts. His name is Joe Rogan. The podcast is called The Joe Rogan Experience. And the Joe Rogan Experience is captivating, and it's very touching for me, because when I was living overseas, by listening to his show and listening to Joe have mature conversations that are really open-minded with people from A-list celebrities to A-list athletes to his comedian friends.
And Joe's not afraid of any topic. Even take a look. Ape on one side, alien on the other. He will dig deep into conspiracy theories, find out if they work, if they don't, if they're relevant or not.
It's like a conversation that you have with your friends, but he's not afraid to hit topics that include psychedelics, that include politics, that include diet, whether you're talking about how to eat healthy as a vegan or to how to eat healthy as a meat eater. He's into spiritual culture. It is the podcast of the podcasts. I'm probably not the first person that told you about it, but it cannot be an influential podcast list without Joe Rogan Experience being the king on his throne. So if you're into psychedelics, and if you're a psychonaut pretty much just means psychedelics. But if you're one of those kind of people, or you're just interested in spirituality from a completely different point of view, one of Joe Rogan's friends, comedian and podcaster Duncan Trussell, has an amazing show called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Because this guy is funny, he's from LA, he's a comedian, but he also grew up with a mom that had him reading the Bhagavad Gita very early, so he's very spiritual, and he'll have guys on his show like Ram Dass, like Jack Cornfield. Like, it's very specific spirituality for the most part, or psychedelia, or psychonautia, if that's even a word. But what he does is he delivers it in such an authentic way. Duncan Trussell Family Hour, pretty funny, interesting, informative, deep podcast. Have you heard of the 4-hour work week? How about the 4-hour body? How about the 4-hour chef? Timothy Ferriss has a podcast by the name of The Timothy Ferriss Show, but he's most famous for being an author of those 3 books. He's doing his best to bring together people or bring in people that he can interview and ask them exactly what it is that makes them tick, makes them so efficient. What Tim has always been really good at is to minimize the amount of time to get from where you start to where you want to go. So whether it be about losing weight or learning a new skill or flipping over your business, it doesn't really matter. Tim has always went straight to the source, talked to the people that did it fast, then did it on himself to make sure that it worked, and then passed it on to us.
Tim also has this amazing ability to attract some A-list guests. One of his top and most interesting interviews is a recent one. He interviewed Jamie Foxx for about 2 hours about all the ins and outs of being an A-list superstar, his morning routine. It's insightful, and it's really going to take you into the heart, eyes, mind of an artist. Radiolab is a lesson in journalism, podcasting with a high production value. They pull stories from the past, recreate them, updating them, but done in such an amazing storytelling way. You're going to find out stuff that you never knew about, but you're going to be fascinated by it. It's a really good podcast.